Hey, what's up, everybody? I have a very special guest with us tonight. My good friend, Daniel Smitherson.
Hey.
He is a guy. He's white, bringing some diversity. He's got a pretty sweet goatee as well. And he's over 30. So we're bridging all the gaps tonight. All the gaps. So anyway, we just saw Lucy. And it was very weird. This movie has a lot of things going for it and a lot of things not going for it, and those things were not in the trailers. So it definitely took a wildly different direction than we originally thought, and those new directions weren't always for the best, put it that way.
Yeah, this was not exactly what I was expecting, although, like I said, coming out of the theater, it was one of those things, I guess, if you try to analyze the trailer, you could have sort of seen it coming because, like Morgan Freeman's character says, it's you unlock that much brain potential and unexpected things happen. And so what happens in the movie is not what you expect, no matter what you expect.
So this movie had a few things going for it. One was obviously probably maybe the strongest element was Scarlett Johansson's character, or her performance, really. She was really great, overall great performance, but just where they took her character, they didn't give her a lot of room to kind of show off her acting abilities, if that makes any sense. They really kind of shoehorned her into a corner, and she didn't have really much to do. The more the movie progressed, kind of the more stilted the performance became. Yeah,
it was sort of like, in the way that Keanu Reeves did a great acting job as a dumb guy in The Matrix. He did a really good job in that because that was the character. In this one, she did a good job, but the character became, progressively one-dimensional. In the beginning, you see a little exchange. It seemed fairly normal, like a normal movie. There's different scenes, people are talking, different characters are introduced, and there was that normal back and forth. But as things go on and things change in her character's life, she physiologically or whatever changes. As that character adapts, it becomes somewhat robotic.
Choi Min-sik, the guy from the original Oldboy. He was also in this South Korean movie called I Saw the Devil. The best South Korean movie I've ever seen. If you want to see some really good acting, go watch that movie. But Choi Min-sik was like totally sidelined. Well, really all the characters, they didn't have any arcs or anything. Lucy was the only one that kind of had one, but it was like this weird, biological mental thing happening. So not a traditional arc, I guess, but it was, some kind of a motion. There was motion. Sure. There was motion.
It went somewhere.
But everybody else in the character was just like, you could have thrown any guy in there. And Morgan Freeman, yeah, he was basically playing the same guy. The Dark Knight, Transcendence, he's pretty much Mr. Fox.
I think he mostly drew from his recent narrating experience on his television shows. What is that, Into the Wormhole?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That's pretty much who he was in this one.
if in the trailer they show some nature scenes, and that's kind of a through line throughout the movie.
Yes.
And there's a lot of Morgan Freeman narrating over those nature scenes. I did not think about that.
Things getting eaten, things getting born, things getting humped. Normal nature shots. It was a bit odd. It starts off with a somewhat plausible sounding premise based loosely on scientific ideas. But if you are one of these people who's a stickler for things being exact to real life, you're gonna go nuts because they take a few ideas and then we'll go into outer space. There were some great special effects. There was a lot of CG. Some of it, and in certain scenes, it felt, you could say, okay, this is a little sloppy here and there. Certain scenes I won't get into, but the problem was the CG, as good as it was, it felt like they were trying to impose it too much on the movie in certain parts, where it seemed like they were just using it to fill plot holes, if you like. A relatively fast-paced film. This, I think, delivers on that. There weren't very many parts of the film where I thought, okay, this is kind of dragging and slow. It's pretty well paced, I thought. You know, it has a good progression. It builds to a kind of climactic end pretty well, I thought.
Now, one thing I do have to praise the movie for is that it takes a lot of risks and it tries really hard to kind of transcend just a sci-fi action movie and, you know, be something more. I don't think it succeeds at that very well, but I have to give it props for at least trying. There's some like really obvious like metaphors in there. They're just so blaring. Like it's cool that they're in there and like they're trying to kind of give you something more than just what's on screen, but they're kind of poor attempts, and I think it ends up just kind of taking away from the movie a little bit.
You know, definitely the weirdness of it, which, you know, in some sci-fi films that can be cool. You know, you see something different, see something, like you said, push boundaries, and it shows you something that you haven't seen a million times in movies before. But in this one, you know, it was as if they said, I took a psychology class my first year in college, and they asked me a question: if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around. And it was like one of those, it doesn't really make sense, it doesn't really have to make sense, let's just have a thought experiment. But they turned it into a movie. They said, okay, let's take this idea that no one can prove or disprove or whatever, so let's just go weird with it and see what happens.
The movie asks questions that it can't answer, and so it attempts to answer them by, well, that no one can answer, like existential questions, and it sort of tries to answer them with imagery. If you're not gonna try to answer this in a real way, just don't ask. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, don't raise your hand unless you have an answer. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and to go along with that, you know, some films will try to ask rhetorical questions to provoke some thought in the audience. You as the movie watcher, okay, they present a dilemma here, and they don't really tell you how you're supposed to feel about it, but as you watch it, it starts a conversation. But in this one, it's like they're saying, hey, think about this, even though it's only gonna mess with your head. I mean, it's gonna make you want to talk about it, but not necessarily in a productive way. Just to say, man, that was weird. You know, overall, I would say, you know, I would kind of rate this kind of like a Michael Bay film. You know, it's not something that you need to watch it and say, I'm gonna get some wisdom out of this. I'm gonna learn some valuable lessons that are expand my mind, because it doesn't offer that. But if you're looking for something that's entertaining, that's visually stunning in certain ways, you know, has some neat actors that, you know, you'll recognize and say, hey, I know that guy, and he's fun to watch, and hey, look, she's pretty, and look at her. It does that really well. So as a fun sci-fi flick, I thought it did a good job. Overall, I would have to say definitely some of the plot points took away from some of that enjoyment, but you know, if I was a teacher grading this thing, I'd say solid C+.
The narrative doesn't really starts to fall apart the more and more the farther and farther you get into the story, and so but they kind of make up for it with these really great, stunning visuals and special effects. So in terms of entertainment value, it's definitely adequate. In terms of like, you know, comprehensive, full package action movie, you know, it fails in that department. So it's below adequate there. You know, if you want to just kind of, I hate to say it, but kind of turn your brain off and just be entertained for 90 minutes, this would be a great movie. So yeah, I'd probably give it 5.5 out of 10. Well, guys, that's just our thoughts on the movie. If you've seen the movie, tell us what you thought in the comments below. And definitely check back here for more reviews. And I'll see you next time. Yeah, it'll be my related videos and then like these bloopers right now. What we're talking about right now.
Like Anchorman, where he's like, you're a filthy whore.
Yes, exactly like that.